paramedic incidents and the outrage
definitely going to have a great show lined up for you this morning, so hopefully you're ready to enjoy that and learn along with us. Plus, we're going to talk a little bit about fishing and hopefully answer some questions for y'all and get some of your fishing reports. Remember, you can call in and join the show at 1-800-969-9352. And the first voice you'll hear is our board extraordinaire, our engineer back there, Derek, who is the one who's the magician behind the glass, making us sound great this morning. So thanks for being here, Derek, and waking up early yet again to join us. But definitely excited about the week to come. We've got some gorgeous weather, finally, a nice long stretch of some nice weather. And this wind is finally relenting. We're going to get a little break from these cold fronts. And we got a full moon coming up as well. So we're really excited about that. Hopefully bringing with it some really hot bites, especially early in the work week. I would say the best days to be out there on the water would be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, with the way the weather's lining up and the different variables are lining up, especially ahead of that full moon. Now, even around the full moon and after the full moon, fishing should still be pretty good this week. A lot of moving water, a lot of strong currents, and those fish are really set into the wintertime pattern. Some would say still setting into the wintertime pattern, but I don't know. That's up for discussion. It's definitely that time of year we've seen the sheep's head pick up inshore. The bite is crazy on the sheep's head. Everybody's catching them around docks, piers, bridges, jetties, rock piles, and we're starting to see them get really prolific. This week, the calming weather should clean up and clear up the water of Tampa Bay. We should see, hopefully, those pompano pick back up. We should see the flounder biting well. And remember, they opened up for harvest again December 1st. So you can keep your flounder once again. We still got some mackerel around. Redfish bites going really well from what I've heard. The snook are back in the bays, rivers, creeks, near shore. Hogfish bites hot. Gag grouper bites hot. And really excited about that. So hopefully nothing impedes the hot bite that's going on right now, but we do have some nasty water on our doorstep to our south that's working its way up. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that this morning as well. And hopefully hearing from you, again, 1-800-969-9352 if you want to join the conversation. If you have a fishing question, or if you just want to give a fishing report or say hello, you can always give us a shout, 1-800-969-9352. So Captain Dustin Pack of Fly Tide Charters again is our guest this morning. How you doing this morning, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Being a fly fishing guy, I don't usually wake up this early. So,
so wait, I'm confused by that. So because you're fly fishing, you don't have to wake up early and catch bait before your trip? Is that what you mean?
Correct. Yeah, I make all my bait in my office at my house. So yeah, we have to wait for the sun to get up for us to see because it's all sight fishing. So
I gotcha. Well, that's interesting. I make all my bait in my office. That's funny.
Yeah, with feathers and hooks and all kinds of brushes.
One of our board members on the Florida Guides Association, Captain TJ Saunders, up in the Big Bend area.
I know TJ, yeah.
Yeah, he's a super cool dude. And every time we're in a board meeting, we're sitting there on a Zoom call with all the board members from across the state of Florida. And he's got his little fly tying thing set up, and he's always tying flies while we're talking. And it's always very, very distracting to me.
Yeah, TJ's a great fly tyer, actually. He sends me we send pictures back and forth about patterns and stuff. So
that's interesting.
Very talented guy.
And that's kind of unique about fly fishing to me is you're often making your own lures and your own
flies. Yeah. It's all. I mean, there's some patterns you can buy. There's a lot of really quality fly tyers out there that sell their patterns and stuff. And me personally, I don't like to tie bait fish patterns for whatever reason. Actually, not for whatever reason, but I just don't like to trim them, and they're a pain in the butt. But the crustaceans, crabs, shrimp, stuff like that, and each estuary or body of water is different for what the fish want to eat. So you kind of have to dial in what your fish want to eat. So then you kind of end up having to tie your own flies to nail that down.
Huh. So bait fish patterns. What do you mean by that?
So like, white bait patterns, threadfin patterns, even needlefish, stuff like that. So it just looks like a little bait fish as opposed to tying what you would call a crustacean fly, which would be a crab or a shrimp.
Huh. That's really interesting. So you can tie different flies based on your estuary and what you're targeting and what species you're going after, basically.
Correct. Yeah. So like in the summertime, you would probably predominantly, I mean, if you're tarpon fishing, you use tarpon flies. If you are, if you're fishing inside the bay for redfish or snook, because there's a lot of bait around this summer, you would probably use some kind of an EP special or, any kind of pattern that's going to mimic a greenback. And then in the wintertime when the bait leaves, then you would probably use, for the most part, crustacean patterns. But then there's some people that just use crustacean patterns year round because they'll work because fish always eat crabs and shrimp.
Yeah, interesting. So you fish primarily Tampa Bay, fly fishing wise.
Correct. I mean, I fish the beaches in the summertime for tarpon. That's my, that's when I make most of my money.
So you fly fish primarily, that's it?
Yeah. I'd say 95% of my client base is fly fishing. I do some bait, or not bait, but I guess I do probably 10 bait trips a year. And then like September, August, when things really start to get hot and slow down. And then I do a couple of artificial sight fishing trips, but 95% of my client base is fly.
That's really interesting to try to go out on the beach in the summer when there's so many boats around, so much boat traffic.
I don't do weekends in the summer.
Yeah, well, that's smart. But trying to target tarpon on flies, and I'm sure, being as though you have a successful business, you're not trying to target them, you're catching them on flies.
You're hooking them, yeah, and then it's hard, and it takes a lot of practice and a lot of times being out there to know exactly what you're looking for, how to, for the client, I can get the client on the fish, it's up to the client to be able to make the cast, and I can walk them through the retrieve, but I can't cast for them. I can't retrieve for them. I can walk them through it, but it's their job to make the cast and make the hook and then fight the fish, and I'm the coach. So.
Wow. Because I know how difficult it is. I mean, I don't run tarpon charters myself, but I can empathize and sympathize with how difficult it is, even bait fishing, to get set up right, find the fish, get set up right, present the bait, entice a bite, and then once it's hooked, trying to walk someone through successfully landing that fish, even with a big conventional reel, is tricky. So I can't imagine finding the fish, setting up properly, and then ultimately it's up to your client, like you said,
exactly,
to present the bait, hook the fish, and then if they hook the fish, oh my goodness, I can't imagine fighting a tarpon on a fly fishing rod.
Yeah, there's a whole, like you said, there's the casting aspect is just one. The moving the fly.
Don't skip over the casting. You just cast to them. No, not with the fly rod. That's not
exactly.
It's not as easy as you make it sound.
The casting is typically the hardest part, and especially if it's windy and the conditions are rough. So you have to be able to make that cast. Sometimes it's 60, even 70 feet. That you got to make it there, and then once it's there, you have to move that fly exactly how they want it moved, and then if they eat it, you have to know how to set it. And like I said, I can walk you through that, but then talking to you about it and telling you about it is completely different than it actually happening in real life, in real time. Because once it happens, it's like hooking a freight train going the opposite direction 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So, but that's why everybody comes down here to do it, because we have such big tarpon on our beaches. And, we also have a lot of traffic with boats and stuff too. But,
yeah, and then once you hook the fish, trying to chase that fish down, because it's going to be a long fight on a fly rod.
Yeah, there's Andy Mill is a famous, he was actually an Olympian, a downhill skier, and he became a world famous tarpon angler on fly. Mm-hmm. And he came up with a method, it's called down and dirty, and it's exactly how you should fight a tarpon. You use the backbone of the fly rod, because there's no backbone in that rod tip. Mm-hmm. You can't, if you fight a tarpon with that rod tip, you're never going to bring that fish in. Yeah. Right. So you use the backbone of the rod, and it's a whole method to it, but you have to do it in order to bring that fish in. And if you don't, there's going to be a time where that fish is going to beat you, and you've got to let that fish go, because it's probably going to end up being detrimental to the fish.
Yeah. So using the backbone of the rod, down and dirty, to me, that means chasing down the fish and getting on top of them.
You are chasing the fish down, to get leverage on them, but it's pretty much grabbing the cork of the rod and almost lifting with your legs. So if you just create a big bow in the rod, it's a 9-foot rod, this big bow, you're probably putting like a pound or two of pressure on that fish.
Wow.
Right, and that's not going to do anything to a 100-pound fish, right? So if you're able to do what they call down and dirty and use the backbone and dig and kind of just use your legs and lift just over to the left. It's kind of hard to explain without showing you, but if there's not a big bow in the line and you can a rod and you can feel that backbone, you're probably putting more like 7 to 8 pounds of pressure on that fish, and over time that'll break that fish down. There's a lot of scientific methods to this. It's very technical.
7 to 8 pounds of pressure. I'm used to using a 9-aught reel on a 125-pound test.
Right? Yeah, for sure. So like we use class tippets, that are 16 pound, and you can get up to 10 to 12 pounds of pressure on that fish as well. But a lot of people think that like 16 pound, you're going to, if you can grab a fly rod, I can hold the fly on one side of the room and you can go to the other side of the room with that fly rod and you can lift straight up and you can pull as hard as you want to. And I will hold that with my fly with my 2 fingers and you won't be able to move my hand. There's no backbone in that rod tip. So you won't be able to move them. So that's how you can sit at home and practice. There's a whole method to that too, where you can lift weights that are under chairs and stuff and be able to feel how it takes or what it takes and what angle it takes for that fly rod to actually lift like a 5-pound weight or a 10-pound weight. And that way oh, this is how I need to be pulling on that fish in order to get that fish in within 45 minutes as opposed to an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours. We're not going to fight a fish that long anyways.
So the fly fishing sounds like a lot of preparation. You're tying your flies. You're practicing on your weights, making sure you're pulling on the line right. That's interesting.
Also, I don't have to get up at 5 a.m.
Nice. That sounds like a nice bonus as well, unless you're on a radio show.
Yeah, that's true. I'm happy to be here, though.
Well, thanks for joining us. And you're also on the board of the Tampa Bay Waterkeepers.
I am.
And what got you into that?
So I'm from here. Well, I was born in Fort Myers, but we moved to the Tampa Bay area when I was 4. So raised here. And, I started fishing here when I was a kid in the Alafia River. And, growing up in this area and then actually marrying my wife, she was a big environmentalist. She was kind of the one that really put me over the top in trying to care for our estuary and what happens in the waterways.
Yeah.
But the more I got involved in fishing and the more it became my career, the more I realized that it takes, I don't get the idea of going out there and taking and not giving anything back.
Amen to that.
If there's so many people that just go out there and take and you don't give anything back to the estuary, and it doesn't have to be things where you have to, join a group like or become on the board of Tampa Bay Waterkeeper. It's just picking up the trash you see or monitoring your waterway of what's going on and demanding change or things that you don't like and stuff like that. It's little things. If everybody does little things, you can go a long way. So I feel like it's my job because it is my job to protect this place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you make money off the water, so you feel incentivized to give back.
Exactly.
And you enjoy the water, whether you make money off it or just get out there and go fishing. You enjoy it. You got to make sure you take care of it the best you can, whether it's just picking up trash or joining an email list or staying abreast.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't want to go out there and take clients into a cesspool with no fish.
Yeah.
I want it to be pristine and I want there to be tons of fish.
Yes, we are going to get into the cesspool conversation later on during the show. Remember, you can join the conversation, too, by giving us a shout at 1-800-969-9352. If you got a fly fishing question, I've got plenty of them, but if you got some of them, you can call in and join us, too, or share a fishing report. We have a break coming up, but we're going to be coming back with Captain Dustin Pack of Fly Tide Charters and myself, Captain Dylan Hubbard of Hubbard's Marina, the Bartow Ford Real Animals Fishing Show. We'll be right back. All right. Guys, we're going to try to restart this stream because something's going on. It's giving me a little bit of issues, so we're